Hey, welcome back. You're watching this Wild West Women's edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. And just 12:15 Eastern here in New York. Not high atop the financial capital of the world where we usually are, because we were at Newsmax headquarters, and we are high atop Midtown Manhattan today, coming here as always noon to 1 Monday to Friday from the Question Tequila Studios. And before we get to Laura Loomer, as the Dow Jones Industrial Average continues to climb going into the 4th of July holiday weekend, we are just marginally under 27,000. As I've been telling you for weeks, above 27,000 on a close on a day like today. I think any slight good news, like a great big military parade or something, could bring the market to way new heights last week. We had the S&P 500 at an all-time high yesterday, and good things are ahead with the Trump economy. Stay nimble, stay aware, and I think the Dow goes much higher from here. The show goes much higher, as always, when we have Women Wednesdays. And today, joining us, we have Laura Loomer. Laura, thank you for joining us for a Liquid Lunch.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent to have you. And we were going back and forth. I've been begging Frankie for like a month now. When are we going to get Laura Loomer on? He said August, and maybe then and that. And then somehow you're here today. I want to thank you for coming down. If you don't know Laura Loomer, she is a conservative activist. And her work with Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, and being an outspoken proponent of America, has caused her to be deplatformed. She's completely and permanently banned from Twitter and other social media sites. You've been called a Nazi. You've been called a racist. You've been called a fascist. What are you?
Well, I'm just a conservative journalist. I'm a Jewish woman who supports President Trump. And because of my work and because of the work I've done, like you said, with Project Veritas and my own independent journalism and activism that is, of course, pro-America and President Trump, the left has decided to target me and deplatform me. And so I'm now the most banned woman in America, literally banned on every single social media platform. And not even just Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, right? We're talking about Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, PayPal, Venmo, GoFundMe, Teespring. I can't make custom t-shirts.
Wait a minute. You can't call an Uber right now.
No, I'm banned on Uber, but I can't even order a sandwich on Uber Eats. So I don't know how you get banned from Uber Eats. I have never...
But you cannot call an Uber. If you try to call an Uber from your phone, you're banned.
She has to use a disguise, like Elaine in that Seinfeld episode.
If you want a sandwich, you got to come in on Mondays, because we had beautiful grilled chicken with broccoli and fresh mozzarella the other day. It was unbelievable. But hey, Uber, leave Laura alone, will you? She needs a taxi already. What about Lyft? Can you use Lyft?
Lyft banned me as well.
Lyft too?
So, yeah,
wow.
They banned me on the same day, actually. And the reason they banned me is because I used to live in New York, right? I lived in Westchester, and then I did a lot of work in New York City. And if you recall, there was an ISIS terrorist attack in New York City on Halloween. Halloween of 2017, and this Uber driver, who was this Islamic immigrant who was also a member of ISIS, used a car to kill 8 people in a bike lane. And of course, it came out that he was a driver for Uber and didn't even have a valid driver's license. And when I took to Twitter to basically say, this is a problem, and I've noticed that basically there's a lot of Islamic Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, and, maybe we should have an alternative to this, right? I got banned, and the company pretty much just banned me instead of addressing the issue.
I just want to be clear, but you don't have any problem with Islamic people that are here legally, right? I mean, do you?
I don't have a problem with Muslim people, but I'm definitely unapologetically anti-Islam, and I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of in saying that. Unfortunately, in this country, a lot of people seem to think that Islam and Muslims are a race. And so when you criticize Islam and you point out issues within the ideology itself and address the fact that itself as an ideology is incompatible with Western values, the Constitution, American values, people are quick to attack you instead of, looking at the facts and thinking, well, maybe this woman has a point, right? But, a clear-cut example, and you can see the problem, with some of these individuals who, have this Islamic ideology. Just look at Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, right? They refused to take their oath on the Constitution and instead took it on the Quran. And now look what they're doing. They're going around calling 9/11 as some people did something.
Well, so Laura, first of all, I think it's crazy that you've been banned from all these platforms, Twitter and everything else that you just mentioned. I'm a big free speech advocate. I have a tough time saying that anybody should be banned from any sort of modern day public square, which is what these social media platforms are. I want to ask you about some of what you just said with respect to Islam, but what's your solution? What would you like to see these social media companies do? We've seen both the president and folks on the left say maybe they need to be regulated, maybe even broken up. What's your view?
Well, the issue is, right, is that these companies now are very monopolistic in nature, and they have so much power that they're censoring the president of the United States. I'm sure you saw the recent Project Veritas exposés, and they literally have a plan at Google and Twitter to shut down conservative speech to steal the election for the Democrats. So I think that these tech CEOs need to be dragged in front of Congress again, and they actually need to go to jail for committing perjury, because if I were to commit perjury or any other member of this country or, you know, someone who wasn't a billionaire were to do that, they'd be arrested and thrown in jail. It's a crime. And they clearly lied to Congress when they testified and said they weren't censoring conservatives.
And because of the way Google is, and you just cited a number of examples, and James O'Keefe has highlighted their censorship of conservative voices, it's much easier to find negative articles about you online than positive articles. But I do want to ask you, about some of the comments that you've made on social media over the years. For instance, how many more people need to die before everyone agrees that Islam is cancer and we should never let another Muslim into the civilized world? Couldn't that be considered some form of hate speech? And if Twitter or these other platforms have a prohibition on hate speech, that maybe they had something of a point?
No, there's no such thing as hate speech. What the left in this country considers hate speech is actually protected speech in this country. And, people's ignorance of Islam as an ideology and their refusal to see that majority of the acts of terrorism in this country are in fact committed by Muslims is not my problem. If they don't want to see the light and they don't want to realize that we have a problem in this country, and they don't want to see how Europe is up in flames and, just look at the way that some of these countries in Europe are being fundamentally transformed. Right? I mean, it's a problem, and we need to address it. And President Trump himself, when he was running for president, said, quote, Islam hates us. And I don't think that I deserve to be banned for sounding the alarm on acts of terrorism and speaking out against Jew hatred and Sharia law and all of these very toxic things that the ideology of Islam tends to bring to our country. I don't think it's a problem.
They call you a Nazi in some places, but you're Jewish. That's almost like the biggest insult.
Yeah.
And we keep talking about the erosion of our rights, citizens' rights. And, we're talking to purple people. We talk to liberal progressives like Richard Roth, who was on yesterday. And we have Laura Loomer, who's way on the right. And the idea is Liquid Lunch is a show where all voices are heard and considered. We put thoughtful consideration into this stuff, and we don't shout each other down. We don't call people names. I appreciate you giving us your perspective. I understand it. I always feel like these First Amendment people should be out there fighting for your cause, even though they don't agree with your conservatism. They're kind of nibbling away at your First Amendment.
Alan
rights.
Dershowitz did, right? Sticking up for Nazis marching in Skokie.
I need a drink when we're getting ready for the big 4th of July holiday, so I'm going to start priming the pump now. And you're getting me hot under the collar because I can't believe you can't even get an Uber. This is unbelievable.
It's a problem. Chase Bank even temporarily shut down my online access to my bank account. So it's not even just a free speech issue.
What rationale do they give you when they do that?
Well, they're just blacklisting conservatives.
But there are conservatives on Twitter, and even some conservatives that have Chase Bank accounts, right?
Right, but what they're doing is they're testing the water to see how far they can take the deplatforming, right? And so a lot of people aren't aware of this because the mainstream media doesn't touch on this, but you have the CEO of Chase Bank engaging in deals with SPLC, donating over $1 million so that they can combat hate. Well, what do you think that means when the head of the SPLC hates President Trump, hates conservatives, and is labeling even moderate conservatives as members of hate groups? So
where can people find you if they want to read your work or see your work?
People can go to my website, lauraloomer.us. I have my own byline on Drudge Report right underneath Rush Limbaugh. So I'm, like I said, banned on every single social media platform, but you can subscribe to my newsletter and go to freeloomer.com if you want to read about my lawsuit. I did sue Twitter and the Council on American-Islamic Relations.
Fantastic. Go to lauraloomer.us if you want to hear more, want to learn more, and stay right there if you want to hear from Republican strategist Jen Kearns, who's coming up next. It's a Wild West Women Wednesday. I want to thank Laura Loomer. You stay right there. We're coming back right after this.